What's up, everybody? This is Dominic DeAngelo of WrestleZone.com. Today's date is May 7th, 2021, and it is two. Who? Marcus, how many?
2, Dominic.
2 Dynamite Dudes With Attitude. Yes, it is Dominic, and I am here with my degenerate brother, Marcus DeAngelo. Marcus, thanks for joining me on our show today to discuss AEW Dynamite.
Hey, absolutely, and what an episode to discuss today, Dominic. My goodness, ups and downs, and let me tell you, next week it's sounding like it's going to be a wild one.
My goodness, yeah, there is plenty to look forward to next week. We'll get to that in a second. Well, not in a second, but maybe in a little bit. But come on, we're burying the lead right here. It's a blood and guts. Was there enough blood, and was there plenty of guts for you in this main event that we had?
Yeah, my wife used the word gratuitous while we were watching that. Yes, gratuitous violence. Dominic, I got to say, better than any War Games match I think I've ever seen. Yeah. I'm trying to think of one that I liked better, or that was more organized, or that told a better story, and I can't think of one. I will say at the end, around the time that they were like pulling up the canvas and using forks, I was like, okay, I'm starting to check out on this. And I was not crazy about like the very fake looking diamond plate that Jericho got thrown through.
Oh, well, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, but other than that, Dominic, I thought it was a really good match.
Steven Chambers already chimed in. Oh, by the way, guys, we're live. So if you want to join in on the conversation, you can do so via Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Yes,
so,
by all means, ask some questions. And Steven, He's got a good one. What's up? Where do you guys rank this blood and guts match with NXT and MLW War Games? I've never seen NXT or MLW. I just referenced the old WCW War Games, which, by the way, if you've never seen, definitely worth a watch. The NWO ones, the Horseman ones, they're all really entertaining. But I gotta say, I think that this match beat any of those that I ever saw. Like I said, from a storytelling standpoint. From like an in-ring action standpoint, I mean, FTR look like stars, which they always do. And like in theory, the finish was the correct finish, was it not? We've got Pinnacle going over.
Hey, you know what? I don't mean to brag, but I kind of mean to brag. I called that match the finish to a T.
What, Jericho getting thrown off?
Not that part, but how it was going to end was who was going to surrender was Sammy. And he was going to do it to save Jericho. I fucking called it 10 hours beforehand, everybody.
I mean, let's not pat ourselves on the back too much, Dominic. It's not like you said he's going to be threatening to throw Jericho off. I mean, you just shut your mouth.
I'm not that damn thorough. Hey, listen, okay. I liked the match. I did. I really did like the match. And I liked that it was like a good chunk of time. Like it was like, 45 minutes long, a little longer? Am I wrong on that?
No, 45 minutes sounds correct. Yeah, I believe it was. And the length didn't bother me.
No,
when it's
not whatsoever. I thought it added to how big of a match it was.
Yeah, it's I think it was Vince McMahon always said like, he hates Iron Man matches. Nobody wants to watch a match for that long. It's like, dude, like we do. If it's a good match, like if it's a shitty match, then I don't want to see a 60-minute match. But if the match is good, Dominic, you and I sat through an Iron Man match live once here in Pittsburgh. Remember it was John Cena and Randy Orton. I believe it was bragging rights. Yeah,
was it really?
Yep. And you and I saw that match, and it was a good match, so I didn't mind it.
Yeah. Wow, that's quite the memory. Because that's over 10 years ago. We went to that.
It was like 2009. I want to say it was Bragging Rights 2009. Same event where Rey Mysterio got beat up by Batista.
Yeah, that's the one I really took away from that event was Batista and Rey.
Going off the rails.
Going off the rails a little bit. But, okay, so I did really like that match. And I thought what the story they were trying to convey with MJF was great. Like, that's what you want. Like, and like, I understand the fact of them having that finish at the end. Like, okay, obviously he threatens to throw Jericho off. Same as like, no, and it's a very Game of Thrones-esque move of MJF. Very, what's the petulant kid's name in Game of Thrones? Joffrey. It's very Joffrey in regard to him saying, oh, no, okay, nope. Away he goes. It's very much like that. So AEW did get a lot of social media criticism. Now, social media, take that for what you will. But as to how the crash pad and all that stuff. Listen, we've watched WWE how many times? When they do falls like this, there's a crash pad. It's kind of goes hand in hand with it. But the item I was like, come on, you could kind of do this, is like either just do different camera angles. Like don't show it close up, have Jericho crash through and leave it at that. Or B, don't even do it. Figure out a different way to get MJ over as that vicious, ruthless guy. Todd Martin from PW Torch made a pretty good suggestion in regards to like MJF like having like his leg tied up in some form or fashion that could look really, really threatening, and then him doing the same thing, but instead of throwing him off of something, you just have him like break Jericho, quote unquote, break Jericho's leg or something to that effect, where you get the same effect, but it's not, you're not showing, how the meat's made basically with that stage that was set up and everything like that.
Well, here's the other option, Dominic, and this is what I would have preferred to see.
Oh, you have a third option.
Yes, and that's tables. Now, I'm not saying put one table down there for Jericho to go through, but if you do a table stacked on top of a table, or even like they used to do in the old Dudley Boys matches where they'd have like two tables side by side and then two tables on top of those tables side by side, like that is going to, he hits the first table and it kills his momentum, hits the second table, kills his momentum even more, and he's kind of gently goes to the ground. Maybe doing that with Jericho is not the way to go.
That's what I was going to say.
But like, why not do it with one of the other guys? How about Sammy Guevara? Throw him off. He's still, young enough.
I think in any of the, I understand taking the precautions of doing it.
I do too.
What I don't vibe with as much is the fact that you showed it too close. If you're gonna do it, like kind of like change it. Fans are gonna bitch either way, because I also saw this too. It was like fans would have bitched if you didn't show a close up of Jericho laying down on the ground, like, hey, why can't we see Jericho? That's a horrible angle you shot that from. You get bitched at either way. So that's why you can't really quantify either what social media says. But I do get like, okay, you're seeing how the meat's made when you see the stage that close and there's like, evidence that, hey, this is not, again,
it was fake diamond plate. You could see that it was like fake stage diamond plate.
Yes.
Like little individual squares of it, which is like, I agree, Dom. Like there are many different ways to go about it. They did it the wrong way. You don't show close-ups, or you just don't do it like you said, because the match was good all by itself. There's plenty of blood, plenty of gore, plenty for everybody to see. And you didn't necessarily need somebody to get thrown off. But that's the thing when it comes to cage matches. And I think it's the challenge when it comes to cage matches of any kind nowadays. And that's it. You either need one of those moments like with Cody Rhodes where he does the moonsault off the top. That is now expected, or somebody getting thrown off the cage is now an expectation every time there's one of those. And so I think like for a lot of fans, there's like that letdown if they don't get to see that. Whereas for me, I'm like, hey, if it's a good match, if you tell a good story, they don't need to get on top of the cage.
Right. And you know what? The fact that it's War Games, Blood and Guts, whatever you want to call it, I think I was shocked when they went picture in picture and they got back from break and they were like, hey, MJF and Jericho are on top of the cage. Like, I was like, I was like, dang it, why it stays in there? But then it kind of made sense. The problem with this is that they didn't show this via the big screen. It was all picture in picture. But what happened was Tully Blanchard got a key and unlocked the cage for MJF to escape. So I can buy into that more. But we didn't see that close up. You know what I mean? Did you even know that happened?
No, I had no idea.
So yeah, that's kind of an issue there too. But yeah, I mean, like, there's different ways you could handle a finish like that. I don't think it ruined the match. I think people will like make too big of a deal about it overall. Like,
I agree.
It's
I agree. Like it was still a good match. I think that it could have been better at the end. We really started to lose momentum, like I said, when they started to do that business with like the fork and pulling back the canvas and all that stuff. But still, I mean, a good match. James Espanto Fernando Tagoy. I don't know how I did there. Steven Chambers' NXT Female War Games match was better overall, but Blood and Guts match versus the male War Games, then Blood and Guts was better. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have a frame of reference, but it was a good match. I thought it was fine. Certainly the ending could have been better, but still pretty good, Dominic. If you were to give it a 10-star rating out of 10 stars, Dom, where you landing with that particular match, not the event?
On the Blood and Guts?
Yes.
Just specifically? As far as now, are we going from a war game structure or overall like a match?
No, dude, just like standalone match.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give it like an 8.2, I think, right? Is that fair?
That's a damn good rating out of 10, Dom. Yeah. I was gonna say something like a solid 7 or 7.1, somewhere in there. But yeah, I mean 8.2, it's a good rate. That's a really good match. So
yeah,
I certainly thought it was fine. Dominic, you're running the ship here, but there's a comment that I do want to talk about. And that's going to be Darby and Miro next week.
Yeah, we'll get to that here in a second. I'll make note to bring that up to because that's definitely something we're going to talk about for sure.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, James gives it an 8.
So, an 8 from James. What about anybody else in here? If you've got,
give us your number for the rating. 2 out of 10.
Out of 10, yes.
You can get to the decimals too if you want. But no, overall, like I thought it was a good close to the show. MJF, those shots of MJF bloody and standing atop of the cage by himself were great. Like those are like stuff that's AEW is going to keep in their catalog for all time, to pull out and stuff.
Absolutely. So, it's we said that about the Thunder Rosa Britt Baker match, like some of those iconic images from that match. It's going to be like on the AEW, like then now forever type thing.
Hopefully they don't do that.
Yeah, hopefully not. But it'll be coming up in that capacity for years to come, and I think that's an indelible image that we're going to get to see as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's follow up. What do you think's next for MJF here after? So Jericho, I think, is going to be gone for a good amount of time. I don't know. Maybe do you see a one-on-one between him and MJF at Double or Nothing? Or
yes,
is that what you're leaning towards?
Yes, I think that's how it's going to go. I think they're going to wind up squaring off eventually. That's certainly what we're building toward. Even if it's not specifically a Double or Nothing, it's coming. Like we will get to see that. And the only move is for MJF to go over. I like Jericho. I still, as much as I give him a hard time, I do still think that he's got a lot left in the tank. He's still got a lot to contribute to pro wrestling. And one of the biggest things that he can contribute to pro wrestling in the stage of his career that he's at now is putting over younger talent. And you start with one of the best heels in the game, which is MJF.
Yeah. And you know what? Jericho's been doing that for, wow. Like Marcus, we went to WrestleMania 29. Who did he put over there? Fandango.
He put over Fandango?
Uh-huh.
How do I not remember that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, WrestleMania 29 was not, let's say, very good.
It had its moments.
Taker versus
CM Junk.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Oh, man. Ignacio Del Rio, I hope I said that right, giving it a 10.
10. And then 10, Steven Chambers with James with an 8.
Yeah, so, all right, man. Some very positive feedback on this match. So, I mean, hey, hats off to AEW. They got over 1 million viewers, did they not?
Yeah, and not only that, but they led in cable.
I've stopped my cat from doing something hideous right now. I'll be right back.
Go for it. From the 18 to 49 demographic, I believe they were number 1 over MTV's The Challenge, which had its, I think, season finale. And then, so first time ever for AEW to do that. And like fans even bitched about that. They said, what was it? Oh, yeah, this is the first time they did it. That was their bitching about it. This is the first time. There's got to be a first time for it happening. I mean, what do you want here? I mean, that's the thing. Do you hear what I was saying, Marcus?
I did.
Okay. Yeah. What'd you think about that? Like, did you happen to notice that on social media or Twitter more so, where fans are bitching about them getting number 1 in cable, even because it simply was their first time doing it?
It's white noise at this point, isn't it? Like, just wrestling fans can never be content. I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, as you all know, and like we could sign Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady in his prime. Doesn't matter. The Cowboys fans are gonna hate whoever the Cowboys quarterback is. So it's been frustrating for me on both fronts as a wrestling fan and as a football fan. James Domi just highlighted. He says, when look over Jericho's WWE career, he was selfless when it came to getting people over, and that's a big part of his job. It's I think it's an inherently selfish business where it's like these guys are very focused on their look, their tan, their spot in the company.
They should be, though, to an extent.
As they should be. You've got to be selfish, especially when you're younger. But what the other half of the business is that when you start to get toward the end of your run, you need to be selfless and you need to put over younger talent and give back to the business that provided you with a living. And so that's why I think it's really important for Jericho to continually put MJF over convincingly.
That's the thing, yeah. And we already alluded to it. Like Jericho's done that, like with plenty of stars in WWE, and now in AEW, like Orange Cassidy. You look at what he's done there. You look at at different stars. It's there's definitely a give and take when it comes to that. But if you're an established talent that's pretty Teflon, and Jericho is there, I think he instills knowledge into people, and he's willing to give back to that effect. So I think that adds to his longevity too.
He's got a few receipts. He's got to give back though now. So
exactly.
He's got one over. He's got one over on Cody. He's got one over on Kenny Omega now. One of their three. So it's
Did he beat Cody? I'm trying to even think.
Yeah, he beat Cody, which is why Cody can no longer challenge for the.
That's right. Yeah. I kept thinking for some reason Kenny and Cody or something.
Yep. So Jericho, I want to see him in the business for another couple of years, at the very least, to continue to just put over new talent.
Yeah, Marcus, I forgot to include this, and this is one of the big stories going right now. I forgot to include this in the lineup, but hey, Daniel Bryan, the report is this should get people chatting a good bit. Yeah, the report is after last week's SmackDown, where Marcus, we talked about it last week, was like, hey, Daniel Bryan's getting, and we talked about the potential of Bryan coming to AEW, but it's got it's kind of confirmed, that Daniel Bryan is gone, or not gone, but his contract is expired. He's officially right now a free agent in professional wrestling. So his options are open, and what we know about Daniel Bryan, or let's say Bryan Danielson, is he's a wrestler's wrestler, and he loves the aspect of wrestling. Now, he said before with WWE, he's like, this is not wrestling exactly. So what does Bryan like to do? He likes to wrestle, and that's where he gets his passion at. So, is he going to re-sign with WWE? They have a lot, obviously, to offer, specifically in money. That's their big primary thing. And then, but also they have a positive relationship with his wife, Bree, too. Now, don't know how much that comes into play exactly, because Bryan's, his own star in that, right? But, I don't know. And plus, Daniel Bryan was also helping kind of produce, and had a little bit of creative work behind the scenes too with SmackDown. A little bit of incentive there. Obviously, Marcus, we would love to see him go to AEW. Would we not?
Absolutely. And certainly it's a possibility. If we as wrestling fans have learned anything, it's that anything can happen in pro wrestling. That being said, if he's saying that WWE is not really pro wrestling, I would be curious as to what his opinion is on AEW, because for every great pro wrestling match that we get, i.e. Thunder Rosa, basically anything Cody does, basically anything FTR does, we also kind of get some of that modern stuff that people aren't, the old school wrestling purists aren't crazy about. So I'm curious as to what his opinion is there. To be honest, I can picture him more easily, and James kind of touched on this. He says, I want to see Daniel Bryan versus Okada at Wrestle Kingdom. I could see him more spending time in Japan than I do him going to AEW. But hey, why not both?
That's what I was going to say. I think the chances are good. To answer Steve's question, is I think the chances are good that he goes to AEW. I'm not saying they're rock solid, absolutely happening, because I could very much, maybe we've just been used to the pattern of wrestlers' contracts expiring in WWE, big name wrestlers, or wrestlers that were oh man, we'd love to see them go somewhere else, and then they end up ultimately re-signing. Perfect example of that is Cesaro. where that happened. So maybe we were trained to kind of think like that, like, okay, he's probably going to re-sign with WWE, and they're like, they could toss him all the money. But what it does boil down to, Marcus, and you said it, like, what does he think of AEW as, from a wrestling perspective? And I think he would think pretty positive in that regard, because look at what Cody's doing and look at what FTR is doing. They have that option to wrestle those types of matches and do that and tell those types of stories. Whereas in WWE, there's that specific constructed style that they want you to go about and do that thing. And that's what Brian was indicating about, like, hey, this is not like wrestling in regards to how we looked at it from a broader, full industry perspective over the course of history. This is like WWE's style. And so we're going to get some, like, Daniel Bryan, wherever he goes, if he goes somewhere else, will have that wrestling option. So I think that's more so an indication to maybe what he was referring to in specifics to, like, where, you have a Young Buck style match that they do in that high flying aspect that goes crazy, which, I don't think Daniel Bryan would necessarily mind to be a factor in here and there. But, like, if he's got the option to wrestle a match that he wants to wrestle, he's going to be able to do that in AEW.
Omer Uriel has made a point that I wanted to touch on as well when it comes to this topic. Didn't Daniel Bryan say that his body didn't feel that good in the last couple of matches he had? Not sure if he could hold up in the brutal Japanese or AEW style. So that I think that's a factor that we need to all consider too, is like Daniel Bryan could just straight up retire. I think he's excited about the prospect of getting to spend time at home with his children and his wife. I'm sure that that's a very exciting prospect after working for WWE and being on the road for as long as he has. So it's a possibility. I would just wager a guess that if he is to show up in AEW, it won't be for at least a year.
Really?
Would be my guess.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, Dom, if I just put myself in his shoes, would I want to like, okay, I just finished up with the biggest wrestling company on the face of the planet, in the history of the planet, and I just finished up my contract there. Okay, let's get back on the road. Nope. It would be okay. Let's go spend some time being a dad. And then, like, wrestling is always going to be there. I could, like, a guy like Daniel Bryan, it could be 5 years from now, and he could reach out to AEW, and they'd be like, "Yep, come on."
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the thing too, is like he could take. You're very right in that regard, like, because he could take some time off, let his body recoup, and kind of enjoy life. And obviously, his children, Marcus, you're a new dad, so like your life priorities change like that. And Daniel Bryan, like, obviously had his kids and have gotten to enjoy them, but like for the extent of like his schedule being completely open, he hasn't gotten to do that yet. So,
well, I also just wanted to say real quick, James has made a couple of good points now. They're interesting ideas at the very least. The first being, let's call his run the Return of the Dragon.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And then he's saying, what about him doing his own version of the Belt Collector? Almost like an Ultimo Dragon is what I'm picturing.
And Kenny Omega.
Yeah, and Kenny Omega. And I mean, just from a fan standpoint, like me wanting to be as entertained as humanly possible, how great would it be if Daniel Bryan kind of started doing the same thing that Kenny Omega is doing in other promotions? Like maybe he goes and grabs the NWA championship, gets the New Japan or whoever else, MLW, ROH, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Hey, Kenny, like I'm ready for your belts now too," It's, man, what a fun feud that would be.
That'd be so fun. Yeah, they end up meeting in the middle or something happens, and that would be super duper cool. Now,
yeah, basically the two best on the face of the planet as far as like a being able to capture belts is concerned, just kind of slowly working their way toward each other. I mean, man, that's about as good as it gets in when it comes to pro wrestling.
Yeah, and but like, so you did mention Bryan taking some potential time off. I mean, the schedule will be lighter wherever else he goes in comparison to WWE.
Yes.
So, I mean, the pressure's not on, the commitments aren't as on. And you know what? Like, you look at what Moxley's doing right now. He's got the world is his oyster, basically. Like, if he wants to wrestle Bloodsport, he can wrestle Bloodsport. If he wants to go to New Japan, COVID permitting, he can do New Japan,
Yep.
And he's the heck. AEW's doing that next week. So
I will say that, as a dad, if I put myself into Daniel Bryan's shoes, it certainly would be easier to say like, hey, how about every other week I come out to Jacksonville and work for you guys?
Right.
I'd be perfectly willing to do that.
And heck, that's how their schedule operates for the most part, right? They do tapings and then they have a week off and then they come back and do tapings. So
right. So obviously, I'm sure storyline wise, maybe he would have to be there a couple weeks in a row. But it's, hey man, if the money's good enough and I can fly in for a day and then fly straight back home to be with my family, then sure.
And so have your cake, eat it too, basically.
Yep.
Marcus. So Kenny does have a potential big match coming up. Double or Nothing, and it's leaning towards, from a story perspective, who we talked about last week, had a big conversation about last week, and I was pretty happy to realize like, oh, I'm hosting the show this week because we talked about this to huge detail, and Orange Cassidy is lined up to seemingly face Kenny Omega at Double or Nothing. Probably not the. I kind of was thinking of it. This is Double or Nothing's not their WrestleMania, right? Is it more All Out, or where are we at on that? Maybe
I have no idea.
If you guys want to chime into that, what is AEW's WrestleMania? Is it Double or Nothing, where they really kicked everything off from an AEW perspective, or is it All Out, the kind of tongue-in-cheek version of All In? So I'm kind of lost at that.
Yeah, I don't know. If I was to just wager a guess, I'd probably say All In or All Out or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I mean, Dom, you and I were at the first ever Double or Nothing. You're going again this year. It's pretty exciting stuff. It's certainly a major event. They position it like a major event. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe they don't need a one marquee event. Maybe it's just they're saying, hey, all of them are good.
Be it too, but. Okay, so hey, though, we talked about it last week. They got to position Orange Cassidy in the right way. We got to see something. You say we got to see something different. I agree to an extent where they got to like not necessarily refine the character or the persona, but add more layers. And I think that's kind of what you were referring to more so in regards to that too. Now, Orange didn't say a word, but the fact that he's in the world title picture and confronts Kenny in the way Kenny tried to downgrade him, but also putting him over at the same time, kind of gets a new layer of Orange Cassidy. Do you agree or don't you?
Yeah, let me say first of all that Kenny Omega is just masterful. I think
it was great. Yeah,
he's awesome. And when you see him next to Orange Cassidy, and I'm not trying to be a body guy or make fun of like people's sizes or whatever, but like he's just a hulking guy by comparison to the average human. Which I would say that Orange Cassidy's body type is a little bit closer to the average human. So like when seeing Kenny Omega next to him, it's like, damn, Kenny Omega's a big dude. Like he's thick. Like he looks like nothing to screw with. But that being said, you asked me about Orange Cassidy, if I think he took any kind of a leap. Not really. I thought he kind of like, I'm trying to think of a gentlemanly way to say this, and I can't. I think he kind of tucked his dick when he didn't try to get his sunglasses back at the end.
Market, I disagree because that's Orange Cassidy. Like you could take his Ray-Bans, and he's just weird, so he's just not going to take it. Okay, he's not taking them back.
But that is the personality type that I'm trying to see a little bit more out of Orange Cassidy.
Well,
like let's get that. Okay, these guys are messing with your gimmick, with your little shtick. Why don't you fight for it? Michael, you're letting Michael Nakazawa walk away with your sunglasses right now.
I think they're going to lead to that, Marcus. This is the first taste we're getting of this in general, of him being in the world title picture. So like. You started off where like you as fans, like you want to see Orange Cassidy, get that, fire back and stuff like that. But this is who Orange Cassidy is right what we see him now. So I think they're teasing that, building up to that, where he's going to be like, we're going to see that other layer that you're wanting of him going, boom. All right. Fuck you, Nakazawa, and fuck you, Kenny. And then you're also going to have just that, the gravitas of him being in the world main event picture. I think it's an appropriate direction for AEW to take, honestly, because you've built Orange Cassidy up to that level. He's feuded with Jericho. that big feud with Jericho. And then it's kind of like he went in a different direction and more like leveled down the card a little bit with the best friends, like feuding with Miro and this kind of, the Arcade Anarchy stuff. But now, boom, he's back to where, that route he was on, I think. So I think they're setting everything up very, very well. I'm really excited about this. Kenny, yeah, Marcus, I thought he was so funny. Like, who says sock hops anymore in today's world and age? But he said it. He dropped it in the promo, and I thought it was great.
Grizzy Bone, he's saying Cassidy's not main event material yet. If he's the one wrestling Omega at Double or Nothing, I would say that they should open the show and not main event. He's not credible yet. So I'm not gonna come out and say that I think that the Orange Cassidy is not worthy of the main event, because I think that we're getting there. Certainly, he's still got enough popularity that it's justifiable. But I don't think that. I think Kenny Omega could be better positioned by being featured in a main event against somebody else.
So, but again, I'm saying this is so. If it's Orange Cassidy versus Kenny, I don't think Orange Cassidy's going to win the title.
I hope not, Dom. I don't, because he's not ready for that push.
I agree with you. Like, I think what we want to do with Orange, or what I specifically want, to see happen with Orange, is the thrill of the chase, like what Dusty Rhodes would do, where it'd be like, all right, he was there, but he didn't quite get it yet, but he's still on that journey to eventually get it, I would say. I think that should happen further down the line. But but putting him up against Kenny like this on a big show, on your SummerSlam, I think it's James that compared it to, is I think a big step in the right direction. And if he wins or loses, I think it helps him in the long run of things, as getting him over as a credible talent to that point. Marcus, I was really happy with this though, because I was like, damn, yes, that's how they should do Orange. And we're gonna get what you're wanting, like where we see a little bit more of Orange, I think, from a different angle.
Here's this is the last I'll say about it, because I think where I stand when it comes to Orange, and certainly the way that he was positioned in this particular segment. But when Kenny Omega takes his glasses, it's like, okay, I can see Orange kind of just continuing to stand there and stare at him. When he handed them over to Nakazawa, I was like, oh, here's what we're doing. But maybe Kenny's gonna walk away, but then he's gonna turn Nakazawa around and knock his ass out and get back his glasses. I was like, okay, so that's fine. But then they both walk away, and it's like, you're not even gonna try. You're not gonna square up with Nakazawa. They position him as this nerd, and you're letting this nerd walk off with your Ray-Bans. It's I don't know, man. I think
it just plays who Orange is. Now,
hey, dude, I maybe I'm a little too old school, but Bret Hart, babyface Bret Hart, would he let somebody walk off with his shit?
It's Orange Cassidy and it's Bret Hart. Okay, Bret Hart obviously would not do that. But Orange Cassidy, again, to maybe not to to fans that are ardent like me and you, but to casual fans, Orange Cassidy is an enigma, and it's
Bret Hart made it to the top of the business. I don't see Orange Cassidy making it to the top of the business as a baby face who allows people to walk off with his
possession. You can't keep doing it, but I don't think they're going to keep doing it. So I think it's all right. I think it's okay.
All right.
Geez, where was I going next? Oh, so another big match. I think really tore the house down was Cody versus QT Marshall. Yeah. Marcus, give me your perspective on that.
Yeah, I've been hard on QT Marshall too, where I just feel like he's got nothing happening. It's like he's the Conrad Thompson used to call Jeff Jarrett the human fast forward button, and that's how I feel about QT Marshall for the most part. But I don't know, he might have changed my perspective a little bit, man. QT Marshall came out this week and he was entertaining. I thought he was technically sound. I just kept dreading the end of that match because I was like, QT's gonna go over. I was like, I convinced myself. I was like, QT, he's going to go over. There's going to be cheating or something. But I just had it set in my mind, okay, I guess QT's going to beat Cody, which is egregious. But no, Cody got him, which is the way it should be. And then Cody, like a veteran should, put over a young guy who's breaking in Anthony Ogogo.
Yeah, I like that finish too. It was pretty cool to get like the flag draped over him and stuff like that. It just adds to something.
Yeah, and QT showed like a lot of personality in the ring. He also showed that he is skilled. Like, inarguably he's skilled in the ring. I think that Cody is a step or two ahead of him, but Cody's probably a step or two ahead of everybody when it comes to being a technical worker. Almost everybody. And but yeah, I thought they showed out. It was a strong match.
Yeah, no, and I think it just it was a nice it was a nice way to start the pace off of like something like that. We were gonna get something different with Blood and Guts, obviously, and we got like more of just a good technical, like solid wrestling match happening with those two. So yeah.
Hey, I thought that Steven made a good point here a little bit ago too. He says Omega versus Darby, the match may happen this year. I feel like that's ultimately what we're headed toward here.
Yeah,
it feels like the inevitability where we've got Darby, who's in all likelihood about to lose his TNT championship to Miro next week. And you've got Kenny Omega coming up against a guy who he needs to go over against. So it's like, okay, I can kind of see where this path is leading. Dom, I don't know if you're there yet, but I'm anxious to talk about Miro. And
yeah, man, I'm actually trying to scroll back to where Steven, I think, mentioned that. Oh, here we go. So yeah, let's talk about it. So if Darby beats Miro next week, won't be surprised Omega versus Darby this summer. Oh, okay, so that's what he was talking about earlier.
Okay, so he's going that way. I'm saying that Miro's going to beat him. Miro's already got a reason. I mean, he doesn't need a reason to beat him. He's a much larger guy, and he should be kind of in the dominant position in this situation. But I mean, Darby was throwing down some stairs, so he's going to be coming out injured for this match next week, and I think Miro's just going to squash him. I think maybe Darby will try to fight out a little bit, but I think Miro's just going to abuse him for the whole match and take his title.
Yeah, I would kind of like it if this match wasn't very long. Honestly,
it shouldn't be. And Miro kind of said it perfectly. It doesn't matter if you are or aren't injured. I will rip you apart. Mm-hmm. I loved his line at the end. Miro gave the best promo he's given so far. I think I said when he first showed up, like, never let him do a promo. He sucks. But no, I've changed my mind because his closeout to that promo, he said something like, "You might be the man who's not afraid to die, but I'm the man who's not afraid to kill you." Something like that.
That's a good line.
Yeah, I was like, damn.
Yeah, that's a good line right there.
Yeah, like he got me pumped up. So yeah, it's I think Miro is really kind of starting to realize his potential, and it's going to give Darby probably the opportunity to work his way toward the big belt, possibly.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good setup. It's coming in there. All signs are pointing to that way.
Kevin Davis, what's up? How are you doing?
Yeah,
thanks for joining us, man.
Let's see. So we talked about fans complaining too much on social media. That's just kind of the nature of the platform, specifically Twitter, more so than anything else. Here, let's take this question real quick though. From Grisbone. Do you guys think Darby should be the one to go over Omega? Because personally, I think Paige should be the one. Now that's really interesting. I think that they're leading that. Yes. So I'm kind of with Grisbone on this. I think like Darby should get up there in the mix of things.
That felt like what they were doing when they separated Omega and Paige, didn't it? Where it just felt like one of them is going to go in one direction, the other's going to go in the other direction, with the idea being that they're going to kind of fan out only to come back and intersect again. So that kind of felt like it's what they were doing from the start, where they broke this team up. To my knowledge, they've never had a singles match against one another in AEW. So it's kind of like the logical thing. Or wait, did they have one?
Who? Darby and Omega?
No, Paige and Omega.
Oh yeah. Mark.
See, I don't remember, but in any case,
the Eliminator match, and then
that's right. That's right. Yeah. But in any case, that is kind of what it felt like AEW was trying to do. Maybe we just aren't there yet. But I mean, I think he makes a great point as far as like who looks like they should be the AEW champion. Would you say that Darby looks more like he should be the champion, flag bearer of the company, or does Paige? I would say Paige.
Paige got, I mean, like from the physical and looks perspective, sure. I don't necessarily think that's too big of a factor in this case because Darby's over. And Darby has like created quite the catalog for himself of matches with this TNT title run. So I mean, I think it's like 1A1. What is it? A1. How's that go?
1A, 1B,
1B, like whatever it is. I think it's more so to that regard. But yes, but to Grisbone's point, I think, they teased Paige being in the number 1 rank just like last week, and then like the ranking switched up because he lost to Cage. I think the story will go to that. Or maybe, what happens is Darby ultimately unseats Kenny, and then Paige goes after Kenny, takes out Kenny, and then we see maybe a Paige and Darby mix up too at some point. There's some options there. I wouldn't be against either one, doing that. But very much, Marcus, I think, and I think you might be in the same boat with me here, is like, I want to see Kenny hold the title for quite a while.
Yeah, I agree. If Kenny Omega held the belt for 2 years, I wouldn't have an issue with it. I think that we need to go a little bit old school because it's different, right? In WWE, all of the championship belts, including their most prestigious, the World Heavyweight Championship, they're props. That's it. They don't serve any purpose other than to drive a story. When you've got somebody who holds a belt for such a long period of time, it makes it mean more. So a 2-year reign in pro wrestling now is just absolutely unheard of. I think we need to get back to that space.
Hey, guess who's doing it? MLW.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Alexander Hammerstone's the first and only national open weight champion.
See, so and you want to talk about a money guy too, Hammerstone. He's got it all. I would love to see a crossover between MLW and AEW.
Yeah, well, pretty cool, Marcus. I mean, we're going off topic here, but did you see what they did this week
on MLW? No.
Oh my gosh, Marcus! They brought Dario Cueto back. Are you familiar with him?
Nope.
You aren't. Lucha Underground. He was El Jefe. He was the big cheese in Lucha Underground. I love violence and all that shit, man.
Yeah.
They brought him into the MLW mix, and he's replacing Selena De La Renta in MLW. Selena De La Renta, another top free agent coming into pro wrestling right now. So,
wow. All right.
Yeah. Lots to think about there. Anyways, yes, I am for something happening, whether it's Paige or Darby in the world title picture. But ultimately, where I really want to lean on is Kenny going on a very long run with this title.
I agree. James, thanks for putting us over on with our Twitters. You can follow me at Marcus P. DeAngelo, follow Dominic at Dominic DeAngelo, follow WrestleZone at WrestleZone.com, and you can follow this podcast at 2 Dynamite Dudes on Twitter. And we'll at the end of the show we'll talk about our other podcasts as well. What's next, Dominic?
So Marcus, we were talking about fans and social media, Twitter specifically going willy-nilly and stuff like that. Marcus, I sent you, I don't know if you looked at it or not, but I sent you this Deadspin article that got published, and it's basically just this guy epitomizes what all is bad about wrestling Twitter and conveys it into a quote unquote article. I don't even want to consider it that, because if you got to read it, it's just a fan bitching. That's what it sounds like.
Is there any chance that this is a parody article?
No, it's not. It's not. It's a serious. So it's something that they put out as a feature editorial, and Deadspin, tries pretty hard at kind of being like Barstool in a lot of ways. And it's a very Barstool-esque. Barstool is, I think, even a little more clever than this, because they don't take themselves seriously sometimes as Deadspin does. And this was like an abomination, I think, of a fucking wrestling article, if you want to call it that. It's like...
full disclosure, Dominic, you sent me the article. I had every intention of reading it, and I didn't.
And you did,
but
that's fine.
The title alone, denigrating Cody Rhodes in any way, I was like, I'm out on this. I don't. Whatever this person is about to say to follow this up, it doesn't make it.
Well, I took a few screenshots of it, but I'm gonna pull it up here. I'm not even. You know what? I'm not gonna even do the guy, the nod of fucking saying his name. but it is it's pretty trash. Like, okay, so hold on, give me a second here. There it is. So let's see. He goes into saying, where do I want to start here? Okay, so he first off he puts Cody over starting first, but then basically it is truly a remarkable accomplishment that in less than 2 years from going from running on an indie show basically to make Dave Meltzer look stupid to creating a company that has one section of WWE on the run. I don't think it's one section. I think it's all of WWE to a level. Like NXT is a section, but WWE's reactionary to AEW. What's going on? So, but this is what he says. All that said, Cody still needs to fuck off. He's like, I get it. It's his company. And I imagine one of the perks of having your own wrestling company is inserting yourself wherever and however much you please. If Cody's problem with WWE was that they didn't utilize him enough or effectively, you certainly make it up for that now.
Frozen.
Am I? Can you hear me, though? Uh-oh. You're frozen, Marcus. What is going on? Hold on a second. I wonder who's online. If you guys can hear me, let me know. Let's see. Marcus, can you enter back in? I think Marcus is probably gone because I see the clock ticking and everything like that. So I will keep reading. Yeah, if you guys can. Oh, there you go.
Hey, there you are. There you are.
Okay. So sweet. Grisbone says he could hear me. So you ended up freezing actually.
Oh, okay.
What happened? So, but where did you get out? Where did you last hear?
Basically, he can integrate himself whenever he pleases.
Okay. So, yeah, he can insert yourself. If Cody's problem with WWE was that they didn't utilize him enough or effectively, you certainly make up for that now with no one to tell him no. So now he says for months, Cody has been a waste of time, and he keeps wasting time. And the only reason he seems to be on that show is it's his show. And then he says he takes up the middle section of Dynamite. And then he also goes on to say, he's bringing up a reality show and mentioning his baby and stuff like that. And nobody gives a shit about that. And then he's saying, this is what I think is super ridiculous, is he's saying that he's trying to be like The Miz.
Yeah.
Now, listen.
Nobody's ever tried to be like The Miz.
And even The Miz has tried to not be like The Miz. And listen, I do not have a problem with Miz as a wrestling persona or even just as I think he's good for WWE as an ambassador, all that kind of thing. He's very much what WWE likes is that kind of thing. So, I mean, I appreciate The Miz for how he can kind of get himself over as a heel. And I think he's good. But come on. Cody's not trying to be like The Miz whatsoever. Cody is trying more so to be like the old school, from that classic, get your stars over, tell a story in the ring, adhere back to history in regards to that than anything else. Like Luthez more so, wear a suit, look sharp. That's what you want to see in a top star. And it's he's a star. He's like, Marcus, we've said this before on here. If there's anybody that's kind of like the face of AEW, it's Cody. Yep. And what is wrong with that? If you are the star, you are going to be over. You have to put yourself over. I think that's a lot of the exception that what people kind of initially took with the Young Bucks was that they were stars, but they weren't putting themselves over as stars. Cody did that from the get-go. Cody's continuing to do that in regards to putting him himself with Shaq, which this guy also takes exception with, and then just other shit. So it's just this is an article to get a reaction. He's getting the reaction. I'm not going to give his name or even link to the article, but if you want, try to read it.
It's out there.
It's a mockery. It's a mockery of what other wrestling writers are trying to do at this moment in time.
I don't think Cody's doing enough. I want to see more of him. You can make an argument, certainly top 5 in the world, probably closer to top 3 male wrestlers on the face of the planet. The guy is unbelievably good, unbelievably skilled, has an unbelievable presence. And I mean,
great at promo, one of the best at promos.
Yes. I mean, just take a look at him versus basically anything else you'll see on WWE. Now, obviously, there's a few exceptions over there, but by and large, Cody Rhodes outshines. If I was going to start a wrestling promotion, and they said take your pick of anybody in the world. Cody might be my first pick.
Marcus, we did half of an AEW draft, and the first overall pick was Cody.
Right, but I'm saying like any promotion, WWE, AEW, whoever, I might still just go with Cody because I really think that he has everything that you want in a star, somebody to build something, build a promotion around.
All right, let's look. Like this is what I'm. If you're looking at to build a star around, look at what Cody offers you: looks, presence, promo ability, nod to history. It's all that.
Ring skills
too. Yeah, it's like he's for, to reference somebody that's we're familiar with on WCW Rewritten, he's the total package, I would say.
He has everything. He has everything that you could possibly want in a pro wrestler. Now, like if John Cena is still an active wrestler, you'd probably want to pull the trigger on him if you could start with one person. But it's Cody's right there, man. Unbelievably skilled. So yeah, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I think that most people will probably read that article and see right through it. But I'm glad that we're bringing it up here and now because I think it's important for people to hear. Dom, I mean, I want to see Cody as the AEW champion, don't you?
Absolutely, and like the fact that they took that away from us so quickly too added some intrigue because you're like, damn it, we aren't going to see Cody as world champ. But I think there's a story to tell. And how he gets that eventually in some form or fashion. Now, fans will always bitch and find a way to like criticize. I mean, that's what the Twitter's all about, is that stuff. James makes a great line here. He's like, I avoid the internet wrestling community / wrestling Twitter because if I wanted to be bitchy comments, I'd go visit my in-laws. So yeah, I mean, come on. People are going to bitch any way you shake it. If it's going to be a good match, if there's going to, there's a story thing that happens, people will find something to bitch about, especially wrestling Twitter. So,
right. This is something that I say once a week, it feels like, but the introducing new talent, I think is going to be one of the most important aspects to AEW success, specifically because I think Cody needs more people to work with. Right. So like how great would it be to see him and Daniel Bryan? How great would it be to see this version of Cody Rhodes and CM Punk, Samoa Joe? The list goes on and on.
At some point, I would love to see Cody and Jon Moxley mix it up.
Yeah. So it's mostly Dom. It's for me right now. AEW is about seeing, okay, who are they going to pair Kenny Omega with? Who are they going to pair Cody with? Who are they going to pair FTR with? Who are they going to pair Thunder Rosa with? So
and therein is the point too, Marcus, is like, and this is the last I pretty much have to say about the article is like that Cody is one of those names. If he's part of if you have a toolbox and he's one of your major tools, why aren't you going to use him? No matter, what his status is in the company, how much sway he has behind the scenes, that doesn't matter. What matters is, does he get ratings? Does he get over the product over? And does it elevate your brand?
Steven saying Cody versus Christian Cage. Come on now.
Well, Marcus, you're all.
Come on now.
I got to ask you this straight out. This wasn't planned. Where do you rank Christian on your AEW list right now?
As far as like hierarchy of AEW?
Yeah, just from a fan perspective of like what you.
Certainly top 5. I would say maybe 4.
4. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. I think Christian Cage, man, I'm just blown away by him.
We didn't see him at all this week, but that's fine.
No, we saw him. Taz was kind of trashing him, talking about his match.
Yeah.
That he had before, and like his like basically criticizing his technique, which I think is great stuff. By the way, I love seeing and hearing that stuff from Taz.
It was like passive aggressive, where he's like,
right.
Oh yeah, look at these moves. Like he's doing his whole Taz. What do they call it? The Taz. I can't remember what the name they have for this.
I don't know. I know what you're talking about though.
But yeah, it's like he's done that plenty of times before, where it's almost like this sports science thing, and he's like lightly taking jabs at Christian throughout the whole thing, and then ultimately like trying to bury him.
but you'd have to be blind not to see it, even in just those clips. Like, man, this dude has got it. He really, really gets it. Still really polished, really skilled for his age. This is my favorite version of Christian. I've seen most of them. I haven't really seen the TNA version of Christian. But I've seen most of his other work, and I was like, he's good. I don't know, but now it's like, okay, I truly get it, and this is my favorite version of him so far.
Marcus, so we're talking about building new stars and things like that. Somebody we got a little sample of, and appropriate for this week too, if you consider Dark Side of the Ring, is in that Fatal 4-Way Tag, we got a little showcase of Brian Pillman Jr.
I'm really glad you brought that up, Dom. And yeah, I mean, Brian Pillman Jr., you want to talk about having it? He showed it big time. I can't remember who he was in the ring with, but
Jungle Boy.
That's it. Those two really complemented each other. Looked great in the ring against one another. Worked really well. I mean, dude, I see serious potential in a singles run for Flying Brian Jr. in the future.
Oh my gosh, man, yeah, and especially with Jungle Boy. Could you imagine a good feud like that going? You get a hot-headed Brian Pillman Jr. going up against super over Jungle Jack Perry. Oh man,
hey, come on now, AEW Cruiserweight Championship tournament. Let's set that up, Dom.
There you go. Set it up. Yeah, man. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was cool too. Not only did he have his dad's tights and trunks, like a nod to his attire, but heck, I thought it was kind of cool that he took the pinfall.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It shows that the kid is willing to work. He understands the business, and he does what's right, does what's asked of him. Good soldier. So it's unlimited potential. Sky's the limit for Flying Brian Jr. And cool to see him kind of featured in that match the day before we do Dark Side of the Ring with his father.
Yeah. Have you watched that yet? It's on my tab to watch.
It's on my DVR, so I'll probably watch it sometime this weekend. I
hear it's very good. Okay. So Marcus, what we got too, we've mentioned this in the Fatal 4-Way Tag is, so next week, the two big matches were named, one of them being Young Bucks are putting the AEW tag titles online against the winner of this match, who ended up being SCU, Daniels and Kazarian. Is this going to be SCU later next week for Daniels and Kaz?
And yeah, I think it's going to be the end of SCU, if I was to guess. I would imagine that Kaz is going to either join forces with the Bucks and turn on Daniels, or it's just going to be, or they're just going to take a straight up loss. I would say it's going to be one or the other. What are your thoughts?
So that's tough. Okay, this is my prediction. I'm saying they lose straight up, and then Kaz has been teasing this heelish persona, especially when he was mixing it up with Christian and stuff like that. After the match, he's going to take out his frustrations on Daniels. Daniels will go away for a while, and then maybe way down the road, we'll see him wrestle Kaz or somebody, But what I think is going to happen is Kaz is going to go join Team Taz, and Brian Cage, the other Cage, eventually will leave Team Taz. And there you go. You got a new member of Team Taz in Kaz without Cage. So, and
very confusing. We were just talking about Christian Cage. You're saying Brian Cage, Kaz. What's going on?
Oh, just spin a lot right there. Spin a lot. But that's my prediction. So that's what I think is going to happen. Yeah, I think this will just help get the Young Bucks over further as heels, them taking out Kaz and Daniels, and then I think it'll be pretty good stuff. I like the Fatal 4-Way Tag match. I don't think it was too crazy and too much of a schmoz. And I think this match next week is going to be very, very good.
Hey, here you go, Grizzy Bone thinking outside the box. How about Mox and Kingston making it a DQ win for the Bucks, making it a triple threat at Double or Nothing for the titles? Then SCU just lose and part ways in a nice way.
Oh,
he's got something there, Dom. I like that idea because it furthers another storyline. It seems like we've transitioned Mox and Kingston out of this Kenny Omega situation. They need something to do, and this could be it. I'm picturing them with the Good Brothers. But this is another way to go.
Boy, that's interesting. Yeah, that's a real good way to look at it because, they could play into that. I could also see that the same thing happening, maybe a meeting of the both here, where if we meld ours together is what happens, maybe what I predict happens, but also then we get Bucks and Mox against Mox and Kingston at Double or Nothing straight up.
Yeah, man.
New DQ match, which would be very intriguing as well. Mark, I would really like, this goes across on both Impact and AEW is Good Brothers don't get enough time to speak. I really feel like we need to get more of that. And what?
I mean, they're two of the most legitimately entertaining people in pro wrestling today. And this whole, what's their event that they put on?
Talking Shop Mania.
Talking Shop Mania. Like, obviously, it's helped to skyrocket their potential as far as like singles workers and talkers and entertainers. So it's I agree. I think that they need the mic in their hands a little more often.
And what's so strange about this too? I want to get your perspective on this. Is Bully Ray tweeted out? Did you see this? Bully Ray's specific tweet.
No.
So he took it. He's like, if I were Impact Wrestling, he's like, I'd be extremely upset that Nakazawa has their world title over his shoulder, and it's all about presentation. He said, or something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing, but he like kind of laid into AEW and like Impact for like allowing that to happen, where it's the title's on Nakazawa's shoulders. You take exception to that? How you feel about that? Anything?
No, isn't that what we call getting heat, right? It's basically Kenny Omega is like putting this prestigious belt on the shoulder of somebody who has no business touching it. And that's like supposed to get heat, where it's like, hey, Kenny Omega, he's such an asshole that this belt doesn't even mean that much to him. He just wants it because it's the title.
Yeah,
it means he's the best. So it's I think it's a little bit of a reach, in my opinion. If Jimmy Hart held the WCW title, would everybody be up in arms about that? Probably not.
Yeah, and you know what? I didn't even think about it. Anything to that, like, oh, how damaging it is to the title that Nakazawa was holding it. Like,
didn't even occur to me when I saw him.
On me until Bully mentioned something to that effect. So
no,
I don't know. I didn't see it as a big deal either, honestly. But
that's been like an age-old thing in pro wrestling, isn't it? Where like this undeserving guy is like challenging Hulk Hogan, let's say, like this dude is just challenging him, and the ref is doing that thing where he holds up the belt, and this guy snags the belt from him and holds it and like puts it around his waist. Saying like, I'm going to win this belt. This is my belt. And then all the fans boo and Hulk Hogan gets mad. This is like an age old wrestling thing, isn't it? Where this undeserving human being grabs the belt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's be honest here. Like Nakazawa is basically like an extension of Omega, but it's like his coat rack. So,
right.
And
we all, as fans, we all want to touch the belt. So I'm, theoretically it should be like, hey, that idiot gets to touch the belt.
Yeah, what I took more exception with when it came to Nakazawa was he was wrestled in khakis and a fucking Best Buy t-shirt. Like,
yeah, yes. What I disliked about Nakazawa was that he was on my television. that was my biggest sticking point with him.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I really like that sock hop line. I really popped for that.
Kenny, he's hit his stride. This is the best version of Kenny Omega, I think, that I've seen. I didn't get to see much of his stuff as the cleaner, and I hear that was awesome. But I don't know, man. This version's pretty.
I'm really enjoying it. He had a great line too on Impact this past week, where he was like, "What did he say? Oh, he was gonna stand at ringside for Doc Gallows' match." And he was like, he was talking about coaching or something like that. And he's like, listen, I got this. I coached high school girls basketball.
So, I mean, he's hilarious. He's hitting his stride. He's this raging cokehead crazy guy, and it's amazing.
And Don Callis with them is great too. It's a really great aspect of pro wrestling right now.
Something different. So I don't remember ever seeing a character like what Kenny Omega's been doing.
No, it's good shit, man. It's real good shit. All right, next week, Marcus. Another big match. I'm very excited for it. I think the promo and the video package that they set up for it all was awesome. Yuji Nagata versus Jon Moxley.
Man. Yeah, great video package. I thought that Jon Moxley taking exception to like something that Nagata had said about him in the past to actually give us some stakes here in the storyline. I thought that was great. Yuji Nagata, he still looks great for his age. And it's this is one of those matches where it's like it kind of takes you back, Dom. You know, Yuji Nagata didn't really register with you and I as young wrestling fans when he was in WCW, but like when you go back and see what he was doing and what he was capable of, it's like, man, this dude was good. Like he was tight. He's a great seller. Sells unbelievably well. As a matter of fact, I just heard somebody on a podcast Kurt Angle put over Yuji Nagata.
Really?
Yeah, saying that he wrestled him in Japan and he was like unbelievable seller.
Nice.
And yeah, so I'm really anxious to see this match.
What do you think happens? Do you think the titles change hands? Do you think Moxley retains? What do you got going?
Mox has had it for a while. So I'm not sure.
Who'd he beat for it, Marcus?
Okada.
Oh. No, maybe I might be wrong because if he's like a two-time champ, but he took it away from Lance Archer.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Lance Archer was the original U.S. champ for IWGP.
Well, it's hard to say because I don't know what's going on over there, what their storylines are like. And I know that he's had it for a while, but that being said, hard for me to picture Moxley losing on AEW TV to a guy who doesn't work for the promotion.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I'm just excited for the match itself. Mox had some good lines in there too. What did he say? He's like, I lose all respect for anybody once that bell rings. I thought that was a great line.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. You know, especially because it's like you got Yuji Nagata, who's an OG, and you know, like certainly well respected in wrestling circles. And due to again, Omega not Omega, but Moxley just nails it on another promo.
100%, man. It's like him, Cody, Kenny, Roman Reigns right now. I think that's pretty much it. Well, I think are in the top upper echelon of promos right now.
I think FTR is really nailing all their promos too, by the way.
Yeah, they do good. Oh, MJF too.
Yeah, and hey, if you guys haven't seen Yuji Nagata in action, just type in WCW Yuji Nagata. You get to see a younger version of him, where this guy was just an absolute savage in the ring.
Dude, he's doing some hard hitting shit too right now. I think in Japan as well. So, yeah, it's pretty neat to see things kind of come full circle from a WCW TNT Tony Schiavone perspective. Yeah,
and Tony himself said, I used to call his matches on WCW years ago. So just really cool, exciting. What an exciting time to be a wrestling fan, isn't it, Dominic? Where we actually have the prospect now of saying like, hey, one of WWE's top guys might maybe show up at some point.
Yeah, there's that intrigue of unknown right now. Like who's going where? The wrestling landscape overall is open for business. Like
it is.
You know, so many fans too. Like they're talking about like, hey, how great would it be to see Daniel Bryan go to ROH and things like that and mix it up there. Samoa Joe's the same talking about. There's just a lot of names out there that need some homes. And,
I saw where CM Punk recently made the remark that he's like, hey, you know, if I get a good enough offer, I'm interested.
Yeah. So it's like, it's open. It's open, man. It's, I think it's a very cool thing. I think, listen, I get some criticism overall when it comes to wrestling in a lot of ways. Like I'm not the hugest fan of like, everybody airing out their grievances on social media. If you like, I kind of like the aspect of like, you know, especially if you're a star or, you know, aiming to be a star, aspiring to be a star. I like you keeping your cards close to the vest, so to speak, when it comes to like social media and certain things like that. And I also like the aspects of like, hey, getting characters over more so than what's happening in the ring, because, you know, I think that's so invaluable. And it's something that I don't want to maybe not the priority for a lot of talents in a lot of ways. So I get that, but ultimately, like we're still getting some good stuff in pro wrestling where it's just like, there's stuff that I was more, and maybe this is more just being in college and living the college lifestyle, but I was more out of wrestling in the like early 2000s and mid 2000s than I was before up until this point, you know? So I think, you know, there's some intriguing stuff happening. And there's a lot of possibilities happening with some intriguing characters. James says something that's pretty obvious, but I can't agree. I have to agree with it. It's Samoa Joe versus CM Punk one more time would be great to see.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Who would say no to that?
Dude, the story behind that, or man, Marcus, this is the big thing. This is like what you could really do to really shake up everything from across the board. You get Joe, Punk, and Brian all
in a faction.
Over. Yeah, all take over AEW.
Now, Dominic, what you just said is like could be a tipping point like NWO-esque situation where like when Hall and Nash and Hogan kind of took over WCW with the NWO and absolutely changed the wrestling landscape, getting the three of those guys together as basically coming in to say like, hey, we're sick of your version of wrestling, our version was better, something like that. Dude, that is how you take over the wrestling world. And you could put that on Monday night up against Raw. It'll blow it out.
Heck yes. I mean, that's not saying a lot right now because Raw's just dog shit awful. But yes. Marcus, it's very much so. How great. Like the fact that that's like, is a possibility, just like a tangible possibility.
It'd be nuts. It'd be nuts.
It's such a cool thing to think about. Now,
it would blow the doors off of pro wrestling. And I can picture it honestly, like reviving that like wrestling boom that we had in the 90s, where it was like this must-watch TV through basically from 96 to 99 or 2000. We could see that again if an angle like that came about. 100%.
Okay. We fantasy book on our other show, WCW Rerun. You specifically do that. But let's do a little bit here. How would you, say that's what would happen. Okay. Is those three show up. How would you do it? Would you do it in the form of the way the NWO invaded, where like CM Punk, say it plays a Scott Hall role and interrupts, and then you slowly drip the other two into the mix? Or would you do it more from a Radicals perspective, where they all showed up at once and then like kind of packed a punch in that regard?
I think that basically doing anything where it's like one person at a time, like the NWO did, and no matter what, it's going to be looked at as derivative of NWO. Whereas like what I would do if it were me is I would have like, let's say Jon Moxley go over Kenny Omega for the championship, this major moment, and like he's celebrating in the ring like this. It's this huge victory after a long drought where like Kenny Omega's been this evil guy who's been holding the belt, and then at the end of the match, he's doing his celebration and gets jumped by three guys, and it's these three. I if it were me, it would be something like that. That would be the place to start.
Would you? That's kind of positioning them as heels, though.
Sure. Why should they not be heels? They're taking over.
You got the Pinnacle, you have the Young Bucks and the Elite.
The company on paper, the company is the babyface, right? Just like WCW was babyface. We love the company. We love AEW. It's a babyface. So these guys coming in, I think naturally should.
But I think that's a tired kind of trope too, where it's like, you're going to go, okay, it's the company. I think more so people are for the stars, where it's like, maybe don't make the company as big of the factor, where it's like the company kind of embraces them, but it's not like from a like corporate pat on the head like WWE does, where it's more so like, hey, this is wrestling. They're wrestlers. They're going to come and kick some ass. And it's more so into the fact that, you have them take out the guys that are kind of like pushing back, and like, so like a perfect team to come up against or like invade or go after would be like the Young Bucks or something to that effect. Where
heck, what about then getting some guys who still wrestle the way that they love wrestling? Like maybe they could say like, hey, Christian Cage, why don't you come with us? Even Chris Jericho, hey, why don't you come with it? CM Punk was, they had their best in the world feud. Which one's the real best in the world? It's like, hey, how about the two best in the world work together? Grizzy Bone saying, I don't think a faction of Punk, Brian, and Joe would get booed by anyone. The Nostalgic alone would generate infinite cheers.
I think it's right there.
Yeah, I mean, he's right. It would be really hard to book them as heels. But same thing with NWO back in the day, right? Where it was like you couldn't dislike Hall and Nash. They were getting cheered right out of the gate. Obviously there was that like fans throwing trash in the ring situation, which we'll never see again because all these fans are smart. But
are they?
Well, most of the fans are smart to the business. I think that positioning them as heels is the right answer, even though they would get cheered.
I just disagree because it's just like, Marcus, if you want to lean into something that's tired and worn out, is the fact of cool heels.
Well, then how about not waging war on AEW? They'd be waging war on the roster of AEW. Saying we want to rebuild this roster in the image that we like.
Yeah, I'm not for that. I don't think I'm with Grisbone here. Is like they're coming in as baby faces. There's no way they're going to get a negative reaction. Why not embrace the fact that they're not going to get a negative reaction and put them over as baby face? Because
why couldn't they? Well, what I'm saying is, why couldn't they be baby faces who are waging war on the roster of AEW?
Okay, well, yeah, that's fine, but yeah, like. Kind of I think that's what I said, wasn't it?
I mean, in a nutshell, I'm getting a little punchy.
well, let's finish up here then, soon. I did want to mention, like, this necessarily doesn't have something to do with Dynamite specifically, but I did write an article this past week reviewing Mission Pro Wrestling and Thunder Rosa's promotion. And we had Thunder Rosa promoting the show 2 episodes ago. So if you haven't gotten a chance to check out that interview, do so, because there's a lot she talks about, not just Mission Pro Wrestling, but AEW too. But it all kind of ties in because I watched Locked and Loaded that you can watch on Title Network. And heck, I'll plug this here too. If you go on Title Network right now, I'm not getting paid. I'm not paid or nothing like this. But you go on Title Network right now, you can get a 2-week free trial and you can check out this show. And this is my point. This show was so well booked and so well paced. It was classic in regards to, like, it makes a blueprint not only for an all women's brand that, like, Mick Foley has pitched to WWE and said, like, you better do it before AEW does it, but it also is a blueprint for what mainstream wrestling should do as a weekly show, because you had these characters and you had each match was different from one another, and it presented different styles and a different story and different pacing. And Marcus, I told you this in a phone call, was like, we only had one dive in that whole show, and it happened the 4th match in, and it happened in a street fight, and it was only one, and that was it. The rest of the show had no dives whatsoever, and it was all like story.
Suicida.
Yeah, and I don't even think the dive was that. Well, maybe it was, but dude, it meant so much when it happened because that was the only one you saw the whole night.
Yes, so, and that's the formula, right? That's what you and I have been saying, where it's like, okay, stop with the dive. We see it every single match. There's one moment every match. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that Thunder Rosa is old school as it gets, right? In our conversation with her, she certainly outlines her wrestling perspective in that way, and her work reflects it. So any promotion that she would have, certainly going to reflect it.
Marcus, I was so engaged in the show, and not from just the pacing and booking perspective, but like the personas that were presented were awesome. Like, it was classic. A lot of them were classic, and a lot of them were like somewhat over the top, but in a good way, where it was like, you knew who they are. You could describe the majority, if not all, of these wrestlers in 1 or 2 sentences. And
well, we need more over the top. I think wrestling needs a little bit more of that. I'm tired of just seeing dudes. Like, there's like you and I talked about him last week. What's the guy, Big Shotty Lee, where it's just like, okay, he's just a dude. Like, that's his gimmick. He's just like a guy who's friends with Cody or whatever. I don't know. So a guy like him, he would, as we said last week, strongly benefit from a really overt, strong, crazy gimmick, even campy gimmick. And so I think wrestling and campy, they kind of go hand in hand.
Marcus, the perfect one that we're just talking about here is one wrestler that I've never seen before Mission Pro here. One of the best names in wrestling right now is Masha Slamovich. She had this. She was like just a nasty heel. She didn't talk. We didn't hear her talk, but you saw what she did in the ring, and she was flipping everybody off. She was like a world beater too, and like from Russia, Masha Slamovich. It's fucking great. Like, it's like you get talents and stars like that, you can get them over and people will remember them and people will tune back into them because they stand out and they are unique. Marcus, I could not say enough about this show. It was really, really good. It made me rethink a whole lot of stuff in regards to like what we see from WWE and what we have suggested or criticized about AEW too in a lot of ways is how they can tighten this up. And this has the blueprint for not only women's wrestling, but all mainstream wrestling in general. It was really well done show. Again, Title Match Network. You can check it out. 2-week free trial. I signed up for it. I watched it. It was great. And I'm very hooked to Mission Pro Wrestling.
Well, now you've got me thinking about it, so I think I'm going to be checking that out. I mean, anything Thunder Rosa touches turns to gold. So,
dude, yeah, right. I'm interested. Dave LaGreca was great in it. It was so good. It was so fun. Plus, we had a cameo from Mark Henry. It was awesome. So,
Dom, let's get to the wrap up portion of the show here. Do you want to do my Meltzer rating?
Let's do this real quick, as James wrote this. I would have Daniel Bryan come to AEW with huge fanfare and have him get a moving speech, and have Samoa Joe, Moxley, and CM Punk come down the aisle vowing to bring back good professional wrestling to television. That would be pretty cool too.
Sure, absolutely, and a good way to make them baby faces too, if that's the route that we want to take. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it would be borderline impossible to book this angle poorly. Right, if you're bringing these guys in as a group, it would be really, really hard to book them poorly. I mean, if you're unless you're trying to, which it feels like WWE does some of the time.
Oh my God, they do it to their own detriment.
Right.
Times. Yeah.
Right. So I think that Tony Khan with those tools in his hands, I think he'd do some masterful work.
Yep. All right, Marcus. Let's do MVPs. Who's your MVP this week? Uh-oh, Marcus, you're muted. I can't hear you. Exit back out.
There we go. I'm back.
Okay. Who's your MVP?
Ooh, scary moment there, Dom. It's got to be MJF. There's really no other option. That indelible image of him on top of the cage with the blood on his face. It's like, man, that's going to be one of those things that lasts in wrestling forever. I thought the match, again, maybe didn't end the way that you and I wanted it to, but it was still a good match, and provided us with some really must-see wrestling moments.
Marcus, I'm going to tip a cap to somebody you appreciate, and that kind of made a good point on Twitter. I'm going Dax Harwood. He started off the match and finished it. And there was a lot of blood there. So he well represented Pinnacle. So and
he was in the Arn Anderson role, right? Arn Anderson always started the War Games matches out for the Horsemen. And so I think Dax, it was pretty natural for him as like basically an Arn Anderson clone to come in there and do the same.
Let me say, too, somebody who really shined in this match, I think, was Wardlow. Just tossing people around like that. That was fucking awesome.
Yep, looked great. I thought Jake Hager looked great as well. The Dead President's gimmick with Santana Ortiz was baller.
Dude, Marcus, I said this on Twitter. It's the new demon. It's like They bring that out. There's some shit going down.
Big matches, they bust that out.
Yeah. Oh, Grizzbone says Sammy Guevara was my MVP. The guy should shine most there. No, you can't argue that either. He did.
He's awesome. There's no other way to look at Sammy Guevara. He's like, I like him as a heel a little bit better, just because he's got this like cocky pretty boy vibe to him, and like he's like very easily hateable because of that. But no, I thought he was great.
Yeah, dude. Okay, Marcus, what is your Marcus Meltzer rating?
Dude, it was a good program this week. Really, really good program. Believe it or not, Dominic, because of everything. I thought the whole program was pretty tight with a couple exceptions. I'm going to be going with a 9.2 this week.
Whoa!
That is, I believe, the highest rating I've ever given. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What else besides Blood and Guts would you credit that for?
Miro's promo, I thought, was outstanding. Again, Kenny Omega's promo, outstanding. Tag match, with like a clusterfuck tag, which I'm usually against, but we got to see the right people featured in the match. Britt Baker had a nice squash match in it.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that.
Right. So just it wasn't the best. So I gave it a 9.2. I'm gonna say it's not the best, like most outstanding, unbelievable. Like it didn't have one of those matches where I was just like blown away, like I was with the Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa match. But just basically, it was just a really tight program. They did everything pretty tight, perfect. All the cues were hit. You know what I mean?
And it wasn't like overwhelming too. I feel like
Right, exactly. And I mean, the blood and guts match, like I said, I've seen a lot of War Games matches, and I think that's the best one I've seen.
How about that? So yeah, no, I really enjoyed the show. Looking forward to next week too. And heck, people were like, "Oh, what's the ratings matter? Like, why is ratings such a big deal?" I think it just adds to like the excitement of it. It's like, hey, man, they had a good product and it showed on television, and so I'm excited to see how that goes next week too.
No question about it, man. AEW certainly trending upward. I think that obviously there's always things that you can clean up, but man, we're at a very interesting like precipice right now when it comes to AEW, where if you were to inject if you were to inject something like CM Punk or Daniel Bryan or Samoa Joe, or better yet, all three. That is gonna shove it right over that precipice, and like, okay, now all of a sudden we're talking about big league stuff, like compete with any other opposition on the face of the planet.
Yeah, man, it's very exciting times. I'm pumped, dude. Marcus, what is trending upward too is how you are booking WCW Rewritten. We just had Super Brawl 8, and damn, did you have some surprises and just a well-booked card overall. Almost akin to Mission Pro.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's go and check out Super Brawl 8. It is a jam-packed card, but I felt like everything went off pretty much without a hitch. And Dominic, let me say that this week, which I guess technically would be the night after Super Brawl 8, but we're doing it a week later. Things are really starting to pick up in WCW, where like we're starting to we're getting into the real meat of what I want WCW to be. And was honestly some of the stuff that really inspired me to do this, where I was like, man, I wish I would have seen that angle, or man, they should have done this. This week kind of starts us getting into that. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, dude, it's been fun. You popped me twice in like the span of like 2 minutes was with what you did in the one match. So
yeah, we had a couple wild ones there, didn't we?
Had a couple wild ones. So definitely tune in. Marcus, how do they follow that, and how do they follow you on Twitter?
You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus P. DeAngelo, as James pointed out before. Thank you, James. And you can follow WCW Rewritten at WCW Rewritten. Yeah,
and go on Twitter too, because
I'll be right back.
Posted that very clip on there of what I'm talking about. So that is on Twitter, on WrestleZone Twitter. Just go there, WrestleZone.com. Check out. You'll find it a lot easier on WCW Rewritten because we don't tweet as much on there, but it's on there. So take a look there. Far as me goes, you can follow me on Twitter at Dominic DeAngelo. You can follow WrestleZone on Twitter at WrestleZone.com. And then, hey, I've got some interviews lined up. I have an interview I did with Les Thatcher, where we talk for an hour and a half. We talk a great deal about just the general landscape and outline of pro wrestling today, but we also talk about his involvement with so much stuff. The guy was a jack of all trades and the originator of a lot of stuff. He was the first person to ever create the wrestling T-shirt, like the wrestling T-shirt, and it's the Briscoe Brothers. So
I lost you there for a sec, but I'm back.
That's okay. Yeah, you were frozen and you came back in. But yes, I'm just putting over the interview I did with Les Thatcher that should drop next week. And in addition to that, Meet the Wrestler 5 coming back, returning. And it is with somebody that Miro mixed it up with this past week on AEW Dark Elevation, Will All Day. I joked that I should change Meet the Wrestler to Meet the Texas Wrestler, because 3 out of the 5 wrestlers I've done have been from Texas. So Will All Day is a really unique talent, very down to earth, and very much like modern in the way he wrestles, because he's very athletic and stuff like that, but very old school in mindset and how he keeps to himself and how he conveys himself. Really interesting conversation. A lot of fun to talk to him there. So be sure to be on the lookout for that next week. We have interviews. Check, like I said, our interview with Thunder Rosa that we did 2 weeks ago. Great interview. one of our favorite things that we've done, I think, on this part for both of us. And then now we also have Jeff Jarrett, Double J, whose podcast, Marcus, have you listened to the Double J podcast yet?
I just listened to it today, and it was awesome.
How great is it, dude? I want to I just want to high five Jeff Jarrett like several times.
Oh man, yeah. Here, just very genuine human being, genuine like perspective on things, and it's cool to finally hear, because when you hear these stories about Double J and him holding up Vince, you can't help but picture like Double J that we see on TV holding up Vince McMahon, right? Like this snarky, arrogant, pretty boy, blonde guy, just like being a heel to Vince McMahon backstage, holding him up and saying, "I ain't putting her over unless you pay me." That's what I'm picturing. But it's like nothing could be further from
no. It was great. He put China over big time too,
and he was happy to do it.
He was happy to do it. Yeah.
So it's cool to hear a different narrative, because before it was just like he didn't want to put over a woman; he wanted his payoff before he did. And he held up Vince, and it's like, what an asshole. But now it's like you actually hear his perspective, and it's like I probably would have held up Vince if I was in his shoes.
Well, Marcus, what was funny too is you mentioned earlier what Conrad called him, like the human fast forward button or whatever. What's funny is Conrad, he's like, I think I should apologize for that, and Jeff's like, no, you don't gotta. Why do you gotta apologize? That kind of thing. He's just
I don't care.
Yeah,
because he's a wrestler, and it's his job. It's his job to get strong reactions out of people one way or the other. He recognizes that. Just the ultimate pro. And man, I mean, Conrad was running down some of their future episodes and some of the things that they have to talk about, and I'm like, I'm excited about literally everything you just said. I cannot wait to hear more about Double J.
As Double J would say, 100%.
Hey Dom, before we parachute out of this, James has one last question. Yep. Greatest wrestler from Texas: Austin, HBK, The Undertaker, Booker T, or Dusty Rhodes? Who's yours?
He's not on that list right there.
Who's yours?
Terry Funk.
The dirty funker.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to argue that one.
Though.
Hard to argue that one. I mean, it's, I feel like probably most people are going to take this route when it comes to this, but I got to go HBK. I mean, just unbelievably entertaining. Even
for me, it's like Funk, Dusty, Austin, and you could switch either one of those and still be the winner.
As I get older,
as I mentioned the cat here,
as I get older, I can really appreciate Shawn Michaels' ring work more and more. And just the more I watch him, I'm like, man, this guy, if everybody else is working at speed 5, he's working at speed 8. He's just head and shoulders above everybody. And it's it is quite obvious whenever you watch him and try to actually analyze the match. It's like, man, this guy is better than everybody he's in the ring with the exception maybe being Bret Hart. And that's what made their feud so interesting.
Grisbone says JBL, of course.
Well, why not? Of course. Well, he's probably the richest.
Dude, I appreciate JBL more and more so too as time goes on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You always heard the stories about him being this giant bully backstage and stuff. And it's when you kind of get to know him a little bit more through interviews and whatnot, it's just it kind of makes sense. It's sort of perfect for him as a human being that he would bully people a little bit.
Yeah. Listen, wrestling's all about characters, and I think JBL is one of them that you gotta appreciate.
No question. Dom, let's parachute out. We'll leave you folks until this Sunday when we're doing WCW Rewritten live, right, Dom?
Oh yeah, it's gonna be live Sunday. Follow the what happens after Super Bowl 8. So
yeah, follow us on Twitter so you can figure out the exact time frame. I don't think Dominic and I have laid it out yet as to what time we're going to be recording on Sunday, but we hope you guys can join us. And in the meantime, if you've never heard an episode of WCW Rewritten, go catch up. All of our episodes are available on YouTube and elsewhere, I'm sure.
SoundCloud. There's a playlist on SoundCloud. So
yeah, so go check them out, catch up, because let me tell you, it's about to heat up.
Oh boy. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate everybody giving comments and stuff. Grisbone, James, Stephen Chambers, everybody that's even just tuning in and listening and not even giving us feedback. It's just fine. Thank you.
Really appreciate you guys being here to join us. Please always feel free to send us messages, ask us questions,
talk some shit on us. We're fine with that.
Look, we'll acknowledge all of it. If you're just looking for attention, we'll hook you up. I don't care.
Oh yeah, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Hey, Marcus, it's been a good time, you degenerate.
Absolutely, always a good time, you slapdick bastard. And I'll talk to you again on Sunday, Dom.
All right, see you guys.
Bye, guys.